Stay with us here on BTTV. I'm Abha Bakaya. Let's take a look at markets and how they're faring today. Back on the uptick after a couple of days of consolidating. I wouldn't even say any kind of pause or profit booking. It was just consolidating. A lot of good news, of course, with regards to earnings. And we're watching out for the Fed meet and decision as well, though that's largely priced in. I've got Chakri Lokapriya joining with me today. Chakri, 0.5% up again today, 19,769 on the Nifty. Sensex also looking good. What's going on and how optimistic are you? We had growth forecasts coming in and those were slightly moderated for India by the IMF. But overall, we clearly seem to be seeing very, very positive signs and data when it comes to domestic growth especially.
Good afternoon. In fact, if we look at the early earnings results of various companies, we're seeing a kind of an earnings recovery, which is a good thing. You can see that the companies are, their revenue growth is clearly very strong. There's still some amount of margin weakness because of, the raw material cost input earlier in the year was still high, but those costs are coming down. And third, as a result of that, I think, we are going to see some amount of earnings upgrade at the index level and for individual companies as well. So that will support valuations and taking the market higher.
Talk to us about the earnings that you've been most excited about, Chakri. Financials have been on fire and lots of news there. What's specifically caught your eye? Let's discuss the financials, of course, but also then outside of that.
Yes, financials and of course industrials. Today, for instance, Larsen & Toubro, very good earnings. They're seeing a really good inflow of orders, which is always an important sign of how the economy is doing and how business confidence is shaping up. And aiding that confidence is also the underlying factors of the election. Going into elections, there is going to be a lot of infra spend. With inflation coming off and hopefully interest rates beginning to being cut later in this year, that will boost business confidence even further. So that's good news for the industrial players. And also the PLI schemes is doing quite wonders for companies such as electronic manufacturing services sectors.
All right. If we're talking about financials and the RBI, of course, writing off a whole host of those bad loans, has given a fresh fillip to the PSU names as well. Would you also be looking into that basket as opposed to your ICICIs of the world? Would you keep it a mix?
Yeah, indeed. In fact, RBI has done a phenomenal job. And, there was some amount of confusion about expected credit losses and what kind of provisions that PSU banks would need to take. So now there's clarifications that PSU banks have been given the time to, provide for the same. So you see that, in the current trend, banks' loans are picking up. Deposits, of course, repricing is bringing down net margins. But when the provision, they're also providing for additional provisions, making the balance sheets stronger. So this places the PSU banks in a stronger place, let's say about a year or two from now. So against the backdrop, they can trade at far higher valuations, giving additional rules for the stocks to move further.
Okay, fair enough. From the NBFC pie, I'm just kind of sticking to financials for a moment. Anything that's exciting to you there? Because we've also been seeing recently some attraction building up across the NBFCs.
NBFCs, they stand in a good place because of one, when interest rates start trending down, that will do wonders for the overall loan book. You'll see an acceleration of that. And specifically, if you within that, if you look at companies like Power Finance Corporation or Rural Electrification Corporation, these are companies, even though they're up strongly over the last 1 year, they still trade at about 0.6 times book value. And the good news is there's a huge new push of green energy, which these guys at the forefront, Power Finance and REC, are at the forefront of lending, financing green energy. As a result of that, you'll see a significant acceleration of their loan growth rate. And they used to trade at more than 1.5 times book to 2 times book in the past. Now they're trading at under half a time book, so providing more than sufficient room for these stocks to do really well over the next 1 year.
Okay, so that's on the NBFCs. Let's talk about Reliance for a moment as well. What did you make of the numbers?
Reliance clearly, I think the OTC from oil to chemicals business was weak as expected, but it is showing an improvement. The retail was kind of in line. Now, the retail business traditionally also picks up as we head into the second half of the year, given the bunch of festivals that come into the second half of the year. So that helps volumes help margins. And over and above that, I think, they've more than reached a critical mass, and there's some amount of strategic sale that they could make to a sovereign fund will further help in valuations. And that's one. And the second is the green energy, which is the next big thing. They're going to spend several $billions in that space. And they're going to start manufacturing, implementing some of their projects going into 24, 25. So, which means that the cash flows from that business will start getting priced into the stock, taking the stock much higher.
Okay. And what about some of, the green energy plays, like a Sterling Wilson, for instance? The last time we spoke, you sounded fairly bullish on that. Tell us why.
Sterling Wilson now, Reliance Industries owns 40% of Sterling Wilson. And Sterling Wilson itself is a turnaround story in the solar space, which in the past got hampered due to high legacy contract orders, which 90% of it has come to an end. Meanwhile, the good news for the company is the PV panels, the solar panel prices have crashed between the price differential between China and rest of the world and India. So which makes it competitive for companies like Sterling Wilson. In addition, they have a big push into the Africa business. They have an Africa business where they have a JV with a US company. Now, with green hydrogen being the big new source of green energy to be exported from Africa to Europe, and Sterling Wilson has some contracts which will also likely benefit. So that's another stock, which is a turnaround stock worth watching over the medium to long term.
All right. That's on Sterling. Let's come back to industrials. You were talking about that. And L&T, of course, has been buzzing lately. The buyback, order wins. Today it's up over 3%. Got to get your call on that blue chip as well, Chakri.
Yeah. Now, L&T clearly, as a company, as an EPC company, largely is benefiting from both its hydrocarbon business, both within India, outside India. The export order book is getting stronger. There is an acceleration of number of execution projects, infrastructure execution projects, including the metros all across the country, and they're benefiting from that. In the rejig of their businesses, it's moved to a short business cycle, so managing their working capital cycle is something which is very important to them. And they've done a good job, very good job with that, as we've seen in the way margins have kind of held up. And now over and above this, I think the share buyback gives an additional confidence. This was held back because of some regulatory reasons that they had to fulfill. Now that's out of the place. I think that will help further boost its stock, and is trading at probably 20 times. So that's a good place to buy L&T.
All right, so that's the view coming in on L&T today. I'm just taking a look at some of the others. Lots of stocks have also been at 52-week highs. We've had a whole host of names as well that from the broader markets that have stood out. PSU stocks, power stocks, of course, those have also been very much catching attention, in the last few sessions particularly. And then, of course, we're talking about earnings and the kind of news that's been coming out there. Some of the other gainers today, of course, from the financials, a little bit of a mixed bag. Punjab National Bank's up 4%. We've been talking about some of those PSU names. In addition to that, Chakri, let's touch upon auto. TVS is higher, of course, on the back of earnings. We had Bajaj yesterday that was steady. A few buy calls coming in on Tata Motors. What's your pick when it comes to the auto pack, if any, if it's on your radar?
All these three companies have a good amount of news flow momentum, which translates into good fundamentals. TVS Motors in the two-wheeler space is taking market share, both in its current two-wheeler space, regular ICU engines, as well as in the EV space. This is one of the few companies which has managed to hold its ground and gain market share in the EV space, has very good plans. Still, growth outlook is very strong. Bajaj Auto, on the other hand, with the Triumph model launch, it takes on Eicher Motors, Royal Enfield, and that will provide it a good growth momentum as well. And third is in Tata Motors. Tata Motors is its Land Rover JLR business is doing really strong. It's coming off a trough because of the weakness seen in past in China, in Europe, which is now strengthening. And then as the company turns cash flow positive in a year or two, that will further help in re-rating the valuation. So Tata Motors also looks good at current levels.
All right, so that's Tata Motors coming in. What are you expecting from the Fed, Chakri? Let me close with that question since all eyes there. All priced in. Any negative shocks you anticipate?
I think it's hopefully priced in, but you never know with the way Fed has been reacting these days. So the huge thing is we're expecting a pivot away from increasing rates and to not just pausing, but then indicating that they will cut in the second half of the year. So if that happens, that will be a further boost, but that is a close call. Would need to watch and watch, wait and watch.
All right, Chakri, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much for joining us. Great chatting with you as always.
Thank you.
Markets steady. Let's just pull up some of those gainers and losers for you for a quick look at how they're panning out today. Lots of other stocks, that are also buzzing in the broader markets, but overall on the index, those are the blue chips that are performing. L&T has definitely been seeing a lot of action in the last couple of sessions. ITC is also back in action today. That's where we'll leave it for now. Thanks so much for watching.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Business Today.